No problem yet.
I think that's last week's thumbnail, though.
Shit. You know what? I'm leaving it. If people can't figure it out,
we're just going with it.
The thumbnail will be correct on the podcast release.
That's the important part, right?
Yeah. Whoops.
I was gonna say, because like I saw the thumbnail you made earlier today.
Yeah, on the probably on Facebook, right?
Like, oh yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah. Whoops. I probably put the wrong date in when I. Never mind. Doesn't matter. It's in the past.
On a completely unrelated note, if you would like to produce this podcast,
yeah,
get in touch.
It's funny. I always imagined that our friend April would be really good at it, but there would be no pay involved.
Yeah.
And I don't feel good asking, people, especially friends.
Yeah. Plus, you and I being musicians, we know how shitty it is to hear. We'll pay you an exposure.
Yeah, like I signed up for this. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna ask someone else to do that. And so we'll just not be very good at producing a live show for the rest of our lives.
Fine,
and I'll be fine with that. You know what?
Blue Sky?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a Blue Sky post.
The app is still incredibly shitty.
Yeah. It's so much nicer to type on this.
Also, apparently, our governor renamed Lake Michigan to Lake Illinois.
I heard that he, when he announced it, he did it like real straight and like real serious.
Mm-hmm.
Invincible, season 3.
I do hope he like actually talked that over with like the governor of Michigan, because I imagine.
Oh, they probably.
That there could be a couple ruffled feathers there.
Well, the governor of Michigan is, really, really left.
Oh.
For America.
Well, yeah.
It's, what's her name? Gretchen something.
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
The one, like, someone was going to kidnap her or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Not someone. It was a whole far-right militia.
Yeah.
Because we live in a civilized country.
Spider-Man.
Does whatever a spider can.
All right, we're doing this, Chris.
Okay.
Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And this is the Jedi Enclave presenting. Now, this is podcasting podcast.
Now with a completely different visual format.
I mentioned this to you before the show started, that we've been thinking about doing this for quite a while now. Mm-hmm. And so my partner and I skipped our adult responsibilities and made a little drive up to IKEA. And like John didn't go to school. I'm just now realizing I probably shouldn't be saying this out loud.
That's fine.
Hopefully no one from his school watches this. Also, they wouldn't give a fuck.
Yeah, the kids got by just fine.
Yeah,
presumably.
So we got this new table from IKEA. John, who is the designer of our set, my partner John, which, by the way, if you're watching this on the live stream, it won't look as good as the podcast version. So you should come by and check out the podcast when it releases in a couple of days, because the camera quality is better, the audio quality is better, and it's just kind of a treat. So keep an eye on that. An eye out on that, because it's just a better way to consume everything. This week, we don't have a bunch of time to really do anything other than talk about all the shit we had to watch this week. And by shit, I mean like all the stuff I really wanted to watch.
I was expecting one Spider-Man episode.
No, there were like 3.
Yeah, so imagine my fucking surprise when I go to watch, Friday when I get home from work. And what the fuck? There's 3
of them. Yeah.
What the hell?
Which is fine because they're like, I don't know, 20-minute episodes.
Yeah.
But then Invincible, they're all like 40-minute, like
45,
full length.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to watch 3 hours of Invincible, which is fine because it's really
which is not a bad thing. Yeah. It's just a lot.
Yeah. So Severance, Season 2, Episode 4, we're talking about today. Invincible, Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3, as we just mentioned. And Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Episodes 3 through 5. And you might be thinking, wow, for a channel called Jedi Enclave, who does a lot of Star Wars stuff, you guys aren't doing a lot of Star Wars stuff today. And
that's because there's no Star Wars happening. That's
true, and I'm very sorry, but nothing's happening. And I was going to do a Star Wars story time, but we just don't have the time for it.
Also, we contain multitudes. We like lots of different
we
stuff.
like a lot of things. Yeah, I meant to say that earlier. Like we're a Star Wars channel, but we also like other stuff. So that's what we're talking about today. If you could, please follow us on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. After this, we will be doing another swing at my great Battlefront 2 experiment, which is to say that I will be playing right there on one Xbox, and you will be playing right there on an entirely different Xbox, and then we'll have two other guys from Gremlin Squad, and this way we don't have to pass one controller
back and forth.
But more importantly, I don't have to undo your changing my controller scheme every other time, because I don't know what's wrong with your brain, but you do things wrong, and you invert the right stick, or is it the left stick?
The right one.
I don't understand how anyone's brains, like, you should get checked for cancer or something, because like I don't understand.
Okay, number one,
don't try to justify this. No apologizing.
In fucking Starfighters, you have the exact same setup. When you pull back on the stick, you go up. When you pull down,
but it's different when you're, because it's like a flight stick.
Yeah,
like that's what you do. You pull back and you go up, and then you dive by pressing forward.
Number two, if you had a little stick coming out of the top of your head and someone pulled back on it, would you look up or would you look down?
I think I'd go to the hospital if I had a stick in my head. That's not okay. So we have two pieces of Star Wars news, and these are very quick. One of them is kind of a huge deal, at least for the two of us. The other one's a huge deal for me if I ever end up going to Galaxy's Edge. But John Williams, the famed composer, and no one freak out, he didn't die, but it is his birthday today.
Oh.
He is 93 years old and has been writing music since 1951.
First credited as Johnny Williams.
Yes. And I don't know how he's doing it. He has come out of retirement. He's still conducting concerts overseas even. It's not even like he's just like going to Japan and conducting concerts and shit.
In fairness, conducting is really good aerobic exercise.
Yeah, he's probably in fairly good shape for a 93-year-old, I would assume. I would hope so.
Plus, he's rich enough that he can probably get really good health care, so that's not hurting us.
Oh, yeah, that dude. I think he made more money off of the Star Wars franchise than like Michael Jordan made in his entire career. So happy birthday, John Williams. We love you, man. Please make it to 94. Don't ever fucking die. Because in today's world, in today's politics, if John Williams dies, there will be no reason for me to live. So, by the way, Luke Skywalker is coming to Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland.
Oh, that's fancy.
It is kind of cool, and they let everyone know. They did a little promotional video where they had the actor, they've got the big Falcon in Galaxy's Edge. They had him walk toward it with his like all black, and R2 was next to him, and he puts his hand on R2's head, and it's like. That's actually pretty cool.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there like Kylo Ren actors and stormtroopers walking around Galaxy's Edge?
Yes, and Rey kind of hangs out. So they're all sequel trilogy characters because that location, Batu, whatever it is a sequel trilogy invention. That's the first like novels that they wrote happened in the sequel era and everything. So like all the characters there are all sequel characters, and Luke is the first like non-sequel, like young Luke. Because I guess they could have like old Luke hanging around, but that would also be kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm just saying it would be really fucking awkward if Luke ran into Kylo.
Yeah, it'd be like when we play Battlefront 2.
Yeah,
and yeah.
And Luke is like, I sense Darth Maul? What the fuck?
I sense you're trying way too hard with all of this. It seems like maybe you're posing a little bit. And imagine being the stormtroopers, by the way, walking through Galaxy's Edge, and they see Luke Skywalker, and they're like,
shit, just pretend you didn't see him. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking.
Is that the guy that pulled a Star Destroyer out of orbit over Jakku? Because that's the rumor.
Oh, yeah.
Is that he pulled an entire Star Destroyer out of orbit. So all during that battle, all the stormtroopers are like, "Holy fuck! Is that Luke Skywalker? We're all gonna fucking die."
I mean, he also destroyed the Death Star and killed millions. But, who's counting?
Oh yeah, a whole string of wanted murder and destruction follows that man, and R2 for some reason. So yeah, there's our Star Wars news for today, and like I said,
We have hit our quota.
Yeah, after this, we'll be playing some Battlefront as well. So that'll be Star Warsy as well. So I'm so sorry when Andor season 2 comes out. We'll come back. We'll talk about it. It'll or when something big happens. I just remembered. In fact, before we move on, I want to get this right because I just remembered there was a big piece of news. There's a new, I think, vice president for Lucasfilm. Derek Hoffman has been named Lucasfilm's new vice president of development, which means that he will be overlooking the live action part, I think, of what they do.
Okay.
So yeah,
good for them, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those inside baseball things that ordinarily wouldn't attract anyone's attention, but because some Star Wars fans are really stupid, this is going to be tea leaves that they're about to.
Well, you see, because he's a white man, Disney is about to publicly execute Kathleen Kennedy and put her head on a spike outside of Galaxy's Edge in Florida, not California. And then this guy will be promoted from within to be the new, Grand High Poobah of Lucasfilm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's totally how it's going to happen.
It's logical. Totally makes
Any
sense.
minute now.
Yeah, Chris, I really love this table.
It's a good table.
I feel like we have so much space, and I don't feel like. Not that I don't mind being. You're one of my best friends. I love you like a brother. Mm-hmm. But I feel like every time we've ever done this live show, I'm just 2 inches from just being right in your space, and I'm glad that isn't a thing anymore.
We have done live shows where our knees were touching.
Touching, yeah. It's a good thing you're you're secure in your sexuality, because that could make you gay.
Yeah,
as everyone knows.
It is contagious, as is well documented.
Do you see this cool fucking lightsaber hilt I've got?
That's really fucking cool.
This is my father bought this for me when I was a freshman in college from a. I don't even think the company exists anymore. That doesn't twist. But there's a battery pack in it, and you could put a blade in there, and there's
neat.
Some fucking lightsaber.
Yeah.
I got BB-8 over here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the we had to drive to Bed Bath & Beyond in Springfield. This is the BB-8 that came out when Force Awakens came out, and I can control this motherfucker with my iPhone, and it's just like the real BB-8. It's got the same mechanism. He rolls around and shit, and his head's like a little magnet. Mm-hmm. And then you've got over there
Princess Leia's little Mickey Mouse droid.
Stacked on top of, you might see the Shakespeare treatments of 2 different Star Wars scripts.
Let's see, The Empire Striketh Back, and I think the other one is The Jedi Doth Return.
Yeah, so that's cool. Anyway, we should at some point do a little tour of all the other shit that doesn't make it on camera.
There's a lot of cool shit up here.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, let's talk about some Severance.
Okay.
The spoilers abound, by the way, and this is one of those shows where it just keeps getting weirder and cooler and kind of amazing. The ending of this particular episode really got me too, because Irving is perhaps my favorite character, and not because he's gay. I mean, it certainly helps, but I think out of a cast of really great actors, John Turturro is the best actor there, I think, which means he's just kind of it's that rare level of just stunningly good. They're all stunningly good, but he's there's something about him that just is I don't know. And it does feel like every scene that he's in, whoever he's interacting with is trying to up their game because they're acting with John Turturro. Yeah, he has that effect. I think they probably feed off each other a lot. That isn't to say that all the actors aren't just stunningly good. No, they're doing extraordinarily good jobs with a really good and really complimentary fucked up script. Oh yeah, it's very and look, there had to have been a discussion in the writers' room for this season where they're like, you know what we need in this show. What's that? Because they already got the goat room. Yeah. So we can't add a goat room. They're like, what would they have done with Lost? We should put some Lost in this show. Yeah. Because this show is even more so than the first season is doing some blatant Lost references that aren't even like, they're not even easy, like they're not even hard to miss anymore, or easy to, they're very hard to miss. Which I'll point out when we get to them.
What if, the things that Lost occasionally screwed up, what if they didn't screw those things
They just
up?
plan ahead, yeah. Like they want to do a time travel thing. Mm-hmm. So there are some questions in this episode. There are a lot of like, what the literal fuck is happening right now in the show? Because you might remember this, and again, spoilers, if you've not seen the fourth episode, go and watch it. If you've not seen the fourth or any of the other episodes, go watch it. The end of episode 3 is Mark's reintegration. Mm-hmm. But then this entire episode happens, and the entire time you're like,
so what was it? Like, how did that affect this?
Like, is he integrated, or did this happen before? And I saw some arguments for both, and I don't know what's happening. So we this episode opens and ends on Irving, which I think is just chef's kiss brilliant. And this is very much his episode, right?
For sure.
And I appreciate he comes to a realization about something that we'll mention later on. He just works it out so fast. And it's like, this dude is so fucking smart. And his thing, he has this moment at the end where you're like, damn, dude.
Damn, dude.
So we open on his face, and he's not in the microdata refinement room. He's
macrodata.
The macrodata refinement room. He's not in the hallways. He's not in the break room. Mm-hmm. He's standing on a frozen lake out in the middle of a tundra.
Really nice touch. You hear the elevator ding go off, and then his eyes open.
Right, so you know that it's his innie.
Exactly.
Now you might be thinking,
his innie is outside.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to happen.
What the actual fuck is happening? And so he looks around, and I feel like he has about the same thought that we all do, which is, what is this?
Why am I wearing a big furry hat?
Russian furry hat and shit? Yeah. And he looks up and he sees Mark on a cliff, who's like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, I don't know. I just got here. I don't know. And he's like, well, come up here. He's like, that makes sense. I'm standing on a lake. This probably isn't safe. Mm-hmm. And so he goes and joins Mark up on this cliff.
On his way up, he runs into Helly.
Yeah. Yes. And then when he gets up there, Dylan stumbles out of like a bush or something. Yeah.
Stumbles out of the forest screaming.
So the immediate question on my mind is this real? Mm-hmm. Or is this like a Lumen creation? Is it like a holodeck? Or is it like I don't even know what the fuck?
My initial thought was that it would be like in Irving's head somehow. Like,
so this only happened for
a hallucination or something.
So you think maybe this only, like the events of this episode only happened for Irving?
Initial thought, but I don't think that after seeing the whole thing.
Yeah, okay. So they all find each other. Mm-hmm. They're up on this cliff.
They're like, okay, what the fuck? And they look over, and on the next cliff over, there's a like in school when the substitute teacher wheels in the TV to show you a movie with
the DVD player and everything. It's playing the Cure hymn in a weird. It's like, I don't even know what it is. It's like burr, 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 burr. By the way, my partner John loves the Cure hymn so much because you might remember in the first season, Patricia Arquette just starts singing it out of nowhere, and it's really uncomfortable and weird. Yeah. And so now whenever we hear the Cure theme, he just like loses his shit because it's like his favorite thing about this show. So they press play. Which, by the way, they can't even be bothered to label the button on the DVD. It just says play title.
Yeah.
It's so like early 2000s and weird, but it's Milchick on the TV. Yeah. And the video is glitchy and stuttery, and it is exactly like, and if you're Lost fans out there, exactly like one of the Dharma Initiative training videos from Lost, which were spliced and... like it's this whole thing. I could try to explain it, but it's like
that was my impression seeing it, not the Dharma thing because I haven't watched much at all of Lost, but just that it was kind of sloppily edited.
Yeah, right. So they are taking part in the outdoor retreat team building occurrence.
Ortmo.
Which I don't know why
which is a marvelously perfectly Lumen description of what they're doing.
They're like, what is the weirdest word we could end this this thing with? occurrence. Like we could use any other word, even any other O word, and it would make it less weird than calling it a team building occurrence. Yeah. And someone pointed out that that abbreviation is an anagram for robot.
Okay.
Which that might actually not. That might just be a coincidence.
Might be a red herring. Yeah.
Yep. So it turns out that they are in Dieter Egan National Forest.
Okay.
And you're like, if you've been paying attention to who the Egans are, because they go down to like the perpetuity wing, and you get to see all like the former CEOs of Lumen and shit. And you're like, well, who the fuck is Dieter? And that's exactly what the characters are like. Who the fuck is Dieter? Like, I don't even know who that is. So Milchick tells them on the video, go forth, find the fourth appendix, go to the scissor cave. It's where the lesbians are, and find the book and read. And
like, what the fuck? There's a fourth appendix?
Right, yeah, because there are three, and he's like, oh, this one's not allowed on the severed floor, so like take that as you will. But also that scissor cave is where Kier tamed the four tempers for the first time. And they're immediately, I like how everyone's like all four of them are like, it's cold, it's kind of cold out here already, and I'd very much like to go back to my cubicle. Why are we doing this?
There's so much weird shit about the Kier Lumen religion cult thing. Like,
I think they took inspiration for it from a lot of, like, they took some shit from Mormonism and maybe a little bit from Scientology, and like there's like Disney in it, and then there's like Apple in it and shit.
I just feel like there is a ton of material that the writers made, like background material that the writers wrote about Kier and this whole cult, that we're probably never going to find out, but is just sort of...
They know it.
Yeah, they know it, and it influenced their writing, and there's things that are implied in the show that we're never going to have full context on.
I wonder how high they were.
Well,
they're like,
we're going to get there.
They're like, we would tell you about all the backstory, but you'd never believe it.
Like,
it's really weird.
You would need to be really high to actually get it.
So here's the next blatant lost connection. As they look over and they see another Mark, who in the credits is referred to as Shadow Mark, standing there ominously and then pointing toward a direction. And this is not the actor that plays Mark. It is not him. It is another actor, and he has been confirmed as the blurry figure that's watching Mark when he goes to wellness in the first couple of minutes.
Oh,
because remember, like in the background, you see like the blurry guy, like just kind of like lean out.
Yeah,
that's him.
Okay.
So this is not the first time he's been in the same vicinity as Shadow Mark, apparently.
That is very interesting for reasons that we'll get into in just a bit.
Yes. Now, what's weird about this is that it mirrors an exact same moment from Lost, where in the very beginning of the show, like arguably the main character Jack is flying his father's body back from Australia, who went on a drinking binge and died. Yeah. And the plane crashes, and he sees his father walking around on the beach, and he runs toward him, and then he's not there, and then they end up finding his coffin later. This is a different than what I was telling you the other day, by the way. This apparently happens twice in the show. And he's like, oh, good, I'll just open the coffin and I'll see my dead father and I'll know that that's not who I saw. And he opens the coffin and he's not in there. And he's like...
Do you mean to tell me they pulled the empty coffin trick twice in Lost?
Yes. It's like poetry.
The more you tell me about this show, like the worse I think it is.
Yeah, it's very much a product of its time. But the way it's shot, with his father on the beach, it looks just like Shadow Mark and everything, and he does the pointing thing even. So Shadow. So they walk around a little bit, right? And Shadow Heli shows up, and I don't know how anyone hasn't noticed this. I haven't seen it written anywhere, but does it not look to you a little bit like she's holding her head like she's being hung?
Yes.
Okay, why is no one talking about this?
I don't know.
Because I watched the new Rockstars video. I watched a couple of other like breakdown videos and shit. No one's talking about this, and it looks like she's being hung by an invisible noose, and it's not the only time.
Like every time she appears on screen, she looks like
she's
that.
like,
yeah. It kind of reminds me of The Ring. You know, the girl that crawls out of the TV.
Oh yeah, creepy girl. Yeah. Creepy lady. Yeah. So okay, they find the scissor cave, and they go and they find
There's this book helpfully labeled with a
4.
Roman numeral 4.
Yeah, 4. Yeah. They're like, I wonder if that's the 4th appendix.
Oh, maybe.
So they crack it open. I think Irving cracks it open. And the dedication page reads for Dieter, and it's written like a novel.
Kier's diary, basically.
Right. So it turns out Kier had a twin brother, which no one knew about.
Shocking.
And apparently, when they were boys, they ran away to live in the woods when they hit puberty because,
sure,
why not? Yeah. So, and then for some reason,
question. When was Kier around? Like,
I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah, because the implication I get is that he would be like 1800s sometime.
He would, yeah. In fact, maybe they've gone into this in the first season. I just don't remember. If you think about, if you want to extrapolate with a little bit of math, we've seen the Perpetuity Wing, and each one of those mannequins is a new generation of Egans that all came from Kier, and I think there are like 8 or 9 people in that room, right? So he would have to be at least in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, for some reason, we read about his twin brother Dieter jerking off onto the ground.
Yeah.
And it's read.
It's written and read in the most awkward, stultifying possible language.
It's like something about spilling his
spilling his lineage and
on
I
the ground.
Heard his relief or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, Kier,
this is so fucking weird.
Is the whole reason you've built your weird religion because you accidentally walked down your brother jerking off once? Because like, I can understand that probably wasn't the most pleasant thing to see, but that happens to brothers a lot. So maybe you shouldn't have gone and made a religion about how you tame the 4 tempers and just been like, I saw my brother jerking off when I was young. It kind of fucked me up. Let me go to therapy.
You can make a religion out of this.
Yeah.
That's a joke that people who are on YouTube at a certain time will get.
Yeah. So Shadow Dylan shows up. And this is where I figured out that they're not the same actors, because like Shadow Mark is filmed far enough away where it kind of looks like it could be him and Helly. But
looking at Mark, I got the sensation that they weren't the same actor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I saw the Shadow Dylan. I was like, that doesn't look like Dylan at all. His hair's different and shit. So this entire time, okay, so Irving, you remember that story in the very first episode of season 2 where Helly tells the story of what happens when she was in her Audie's body?
She said fucking ran outside and talked to the gardener.
Yeah.
Except it was at night.
The night gardener, right. Yeah. So it turns out that Irving didn't buy her bullshit on day one. Was like, okay, well, we're gonna come back to this. Yeah. We're gonna circle back because that smells like bullshit to me. And he's becoming more and more suspicious of her, and he kind of like pulls Mark aside and he's like, look, I know you want to fuck her, but I don't think we should trust her. And he's like, dude, what are you talking about? She's so hot.
Yeah.
How?
Surely nobody that hot could possibly have bad intentions.
Like, and she's interested in me. Irving, don't fuck this up for me.
Like, look, dude, you had your chance with Bert. I'm really sorry about how that ended.
Yeah.
That's no reason to shit on my chances here.
Right. And by the way, I think this is where, like, he tells her, he's like, oh, look, I'm really sorry that, like, what you saw on the outside wasn't what you wanted. Yeah. And then he
immediately turns to Dylan. What the fuck did you tell him?
He said, what did you tell him, dumbass? It's just really funny.
Because that's like the first time we hear any Irving swear.
Oh, that's not true. So in season 1, after he comes back from Bert's forced retirement, he says, "Let's burn this place to the fucking ground." And you're like, okay, yes. Yeah. And then he tells Milchick that he says, "You're a smug motherfucker." And it's like, damn, dude. Yeah. And it's the thing about what I love about Irving is that he's introduced in such a particular way. But as you get to know him more, he is very clearly fearless and really smart. And that's the thing is that in my notes, like, he is so fucking sharp that he puts this thing about Helly that we're going to find out later together so fast. So they find a dead seal. Just because why not?
Yeah.
And
where did it come from? Why did it die?
It looks like maybe something took a bite out of it.
Maybe.
Irving is like, we should eat it.
Everyone's like,
why?
Okay, that's a little weird.
Yeah. He's like, we might get really hungry out here. I'm just saying, there's a seal. Eat the seal.
There's a whole bunch of trees around here. Surely we can start a fire.
Yeah, just no one jerk off onto the ground.
Yeah, just no one jerk off on the seal and we'll be fine.
Or the ground or the seal, yeah. So they see their shadow selves. They find this really pretty
they get
waterfall.
To this big waterfall is an open clearing, and they look up and there's all 4 of them, which I believe this is the only time we see Shadow Irving. Because like the other 3 pointed them through the woods.
I think you must be right.
I don't know if that has any significance or not, but it's something I noticed.
Yeah, it would be weirder if he wasn't there at all.
Yeah.
But that is still kind of weird.
Yeah.
So they're all standing up on the waterfall. Milchick shows up.
Yeah.
In his fucking all white.
Yeah.
Like.
So Macrodata Refinement is dressed in this completely black. Milchick and Miss Wong, when she shows up, are dressed in completely all white.
Yeah, you know that Milchick like put that outfit on and looked in the mirror and was like, damn,
I look good.
Yeah, it looks really good. So he like talks about, he's like, these are your Dieter twins, and they're like, what?
Yes, the same way Kier had twins, you now have twins. Congratulations, I guess.
And then he says, this is the tallest waterfall on the planet. Like,
which is not true.
What a weird thing to lie about.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he's trying to impress them with the
and to be
huge
fair,
expense that Lumen has taken to on this retreat.
Or whatever,
and
whatever
team
it is.
building occurrence.
Yeah. So, like, in his defense, how would they know?
Yeah.
Because they've never been outside before. So it's like, no. This is, not only is this the tallest waterfall, it's the only one on the entire Earth.
I mean, unless one of them pulled out their fucking smartphone and Googled biggest waterfall in the world.
But they don't have their smartphones.
During the 30 minutes they were in the fucking overtime contingency.
Yeah, it's like they're scrolling through Wikipedia trying to
I need to know the tallest waterfall in the world.
This might come up later.
Fuck telling people what's happening on the 7th floor. I need to know this. What the fuck is Niagara Falls?
Okay, can we not pretend like that's not something Dylan would have done? He's like, shit, I need to know more about waterfalls. So, okay. Milchick leads them back to a camp with tents that are micro data refinement blue.
Macro data.
I'm sorry. Which, by the way, it's like, that's a special shade of blue, I guess.
Particular color.
Miss Wong is like hanging out. She's like cooking. She's like got a spit over
the fire. Grill with premium meats.
Yeah. Milchick flexes a little bit about the quality toilet paper that's in the outhouse. He's like, that shit feels so good on your ass.
4-ply.
You've never felt shit like that in your Audi probably has, but you haven't.
Yeah.
And
later on, we will have a reading and recital.
You're right. Which first I was like, okay, so he means like a camp song, but I think he means recital in a very strangely like specific way.
Well, what happens?
Wait, hold on, we'll get there, because what happens before that is that they have a Prometheus handing off the fire thing because none of these people have seen fire before. And so like he hands a torch to Mark and Mark's like, what the fuck is this? And this is one of those things where it's like, I don't think that he's integrated because he's looking like he's seen fire for the first time in his life.
Yeah.
And it's really, I'm just not sure what the whole Mark thing is because like,
this is such a weird episode that feels like it almost exists outside of the timeline of the rest of the show.
I know. I get that hint too. Yeah, I get that feeling too.
I need to see next week's episode to know like how this fits in.
So they have their does the recital happen before or after Helly goes to his
before
okay. So they're hanging out in their tents, right? And Helly shows up because things got a little heated earlier, and she's made him a little snow seal, which by the way looks like a fucking seal. Like, good job on it.
Yeah.
And she was like, in case you're hungry. And I was like, okay, that's actually pretty funny. But like Irving sees right through it, and he questions her again. He's like, what happened?
What the fuck's up with that night gardener, Helly?
Yeah, and she doesn't budge. And there's this actor that plays Helly is so good. There's this like blink and you miss it emotion that flits across her face where she narrows her eyes in like contempt. And then she goes, okay. and then just leaves. And it's like
Irving's like, I'm onto something.
Well, I think Helly's like, oh shit, how the fuck did he figure this out? So okay, it's time for, and this is a sentence that's real, time for Miss Wong's theremin recital.
Yep.
Because why the fuck not? Miss Wong.
Why would she play something basic like guitar when she could play theremin?
She's a theremin virtuoso.
Yeah.
And she's doing a good fucking job because theremins aren't exactly easy to play.
She's a fucking 12-year-old assistant manager.
Yes.
Theremin virtuoso.
Yeah, and she's back there just fucking
she's just fucking
playing it and shit.
Playing the theremin.
Which, by the way, if you don't know, like you know the sound of a theremin. Everyone does. Whether or not you know it, you know what it sounds like.
The original Star Trek opening theme.
Yep. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah,
that part.
They are notoriously difficult to figure out because of how it's all magnetic fields. You don't actually touch the thing. You just sort of wave your hands around. Like one hand controls volume, one hand controls pitch. Yeah,
and it's if you've ever tried to play a trombone, where like you just do the slide thing and there are notes somewhere along the line.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
It's very bizarre.
Except you're not touching anything.
Yeah. So she's back there just fucking tearing it up on the theremin, and fucking Milchick pulls out the book, and it's like, I'm gonna tell you guys a fucking story, and he like tells them about Kier and his brother and shit, and then the story goes in this really weird body horror direction where Kier's twin brother turns into a tree, but it's really gross the way he describes it, because he's talking
like
about
his eye pops out and there's a bunch of pus that turns into sap.
And like his scalp sloughs off or something. It's really gross, and everyone around the fire is like, oh,
weird.
Why the fuck? And
then Kier walks away to the waterfall they saw earlier and finds this like not dwarf, but like
little half woman.
half-sized woman who like he describes like she's out of a horror movie.
Well, her name's Woe, which is one of the four tempers. And okay, by the way, when this body horror section starts, that's when like Miss Wong back there is like, oh, it's about to get real creepy with the theremin, and like it's real low on pitch, and it's like really, it's like almost Hans Zimmer like, and so the moral of the story generally is don't jerk off, you'll turn into a tree.
And Helly just starts fucking laughing,
right? Because it is on its face,
kind of absurd.
Yeah, absurd. Because like he turns into a tree and he runs to the waterfall so he doesn't have to hear his screams anymore. And he meets this like nasty little half woman, and she says, "This is your doing. You suffered his wantonness. Now he's no one's brother, just chaos's whore." And that's where Helly's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about?
He turned into a tree because he jerked off on the ground?
Right, yeah. Let me tell you, Milchick is not amused by this at all. And he gets... Because you know how... You remember in season 1 when they did the dance experience? And I think like Dylan bites him. And then he like... The thing in the moment that he can do to hurt them is like, this dance experience is over. And it's like, you know, that like out of all the stuff that's happening right now, your need to control the situation, be like, I'm taking this away from you, is so bizarre. And he does the same thing here where he snaps the book closed.
Well, first Mark, like Helly like elbows Mark, and Mark starts laughing,
right? Because Mark's at this point is so into Helly that he'll laugh at whatever joke she says. It's that kind of like, you know, attraction.
And Dylan and Irving are like completely stone-faced. They're serious. They think, oh, this is part of our religious text.
Right. And like Irving, I don't know what Irving's thinking, because he's like, but I just jerked off like yesterday. Is the tree thing immediate, or is that going to happen in time?
Yeah. Is it like localized, like you can't jerk off inside this forest?
Or as long as you don't like splooge on the ground, like you can like, I don't know, put it in the trash or something.
Yeah, like what's going on here?
Anyway, it's they don't think it's so funny, but Milchick like he's
like, this reading is over. Slaps the book closed. Miss Wong, grab those marshmallows with that have Kier's face printed on them,
every single one of them,
and throw them in the fire.
Yes, and he does this dance experience is over thing.
Yep.
And
marshmallows are for team members, and you're not being a team member when you laugh at my god.
Yeah. And he storms off. And everyone's like, well, fucking...
guess there's no s'mores tonight. Let's fucking go to bed.
So, while they're all hanging out around the fire, and Irving calls Helly out again. And he's like, bitch, I know you're lying. What is going on? And Helly points out how lonely Irving is because he can't see Bert anymore. And it really hurts Irving to hear it out loud. And so he grabs a torch and he's like, fuck you guys. And just walks into the forest, right? And so they all go to their tents. Of course, Mark goes to Helly's tent. And Helly's like, look, I was kind of hard on Irving. That was kind of mean. And Mark shrugs. He's so whipped right now. Yeah. He's like, he deserved it. And then they fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, Mark, you're the protagonist of the story. Stop being a scumbag. That's your friend. Like, come on, man. Yeah. So,
and it sort of cuts back and forth between Mark and Helly fucking and Irving just sort of marching through the woods.
Yeah, just like wandering through the,
Really good cinematography here.
Every shot in this show is just a treat. Like the opening shot with like the close up on Irving and pulling back and seeing him on the lake. Yeah. And you're just like, oh my God, that's so cool.
This is completely a side note, but like 1 week after we did this show, you, me, and John were watching Helly's actress on some late night show. I think it might have been Colbert.
Yeah.
And she was, talking about how like she was relating this story about John Turturro where like she was shadowboxing to keep warm in the cold. Right. I'm pretty sure it happened during this episode, like while they were filming this episode.
Yeah, because they filmed it on location.
Yeah.
I think you're right actually. Because he told her to punch him in the stomach or something, right? Yeah.
She was like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, fucking do it. Punch me in the stomach." And so she did.
I bet John Turturro is the funnest guy to be around.
Probably.
So they fuck, and during their pillow talk,
Helly's like, "I didn't like who I was on the outside, so I fucking lied."
Yeah. And Mark is, she doesn't go into specifics.
Mark's first response is, "Well, who were you on the outside?" And Helly doesn't say anything. He's like, "You know what? I don't care who you were on the outside. I only care about your inner beauty. Your innie beauty."
Also, and let's not lie, you're pussy a little bit, just a little bit. And she's like, "Well, good." And I found myself not liking Mark very much in this episode, which sucks because I think that's on purpose. I don't think it's a weakness in the writing or anything. I think that we're supposed to see Mark as someone with some confused priorities.
Very much so.
And it's like when Dylan doesn't help them look for Miss Casey and goes to the family visitation room instead, and we're like, dude, come on, man. So anyway,
so at one point...
Hold on a second. I want to catch my spot. Okay, go ahead.
So Irving is walking through the woods. He's like calling out for Milchek.
Oh, well, we have to talk about... during this pillow talk scene, they start, I think...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So they're about to do round 2.
Well, because he's about to go for reinsertion.
Yeah.
He rolls over on top and is like, girl, here it comes.
He's right there. And then all of a sudden, for like a flicker...
You get that audio sound effect from the season finale of from season 1, which is when every scene change had that audio stutter sound. Yeah. And like it's such a unique sound that I've never heard anything like that anywhere else in a show. So it's very immediately it was like brought me back to that feeling of being in the season finale in season 1 where it's like, oh God.
And for just a split second he sees Gemma, Miss Casey's face on Helly's body.
Yeah.
And like he blinks, he's like, the fuck?
Yeah, I like how he's like, we're still doing this.
Yeah. They flicker a couple more times and Helly's like, dude, you okay?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I guess that pussy's so good it's making me see things.
Yeah, you're making me see my Audi's dead wife, and honestly she's hot too, so I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So Irving
is that honestly that is the biggest hint we get that the integration happened at some level,
or has started. Maybe it's a thing where it starts small,
it could be a gradual thing,
like a snowball thing.
Has to snowball over time.
Yeah.
It could be something where you need to like go back and do it multiple times.
If I remember, so Petey, who is integrated in season 1, has flashes like that, where he like looks in the mirror and he's in his like bathrobe, and then it like stutters like that, and then he's in his suit in macro data refinement.
Could also be.
Yeah. So Irving is out in the woods and decides he's going to take a nap.
Well, he trips and his torch
goes out,
douses, and then he's like, you know what? This is a comfy looking
he's
rock.
Like, he's
let's go to
He
sleep.
doesn't move. He's like, you know what? This is comfortable enough. And then he like lays his head against the rock, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go to bed now. Which, if I had had the day that Irving had, I'd have been like, I'm just going to lay here until I die, I think.
You know what? Freezing in the woods might actually be better than going back and having to deal with Helly's bullshit.
I've heard that it's a very peaceful death, by the way, freezing to death. Not to get too morbid or anything, but I've heard out of the ways to die, between that and like nitrogen asphyxiation or something, that it's very like after a while you don't even care that it's cold, and you just kind of go to sleep.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So he wakes up, and he is in his work suit. And
the forest looks different.
Yeah, everything's like kind of dead and sparse. Like there isn't a lot of like greenery and shit.
Like rather than being sort of the upright trees that they were seeing before, the sort of like curled and bent and
gnarled.
Yeah.
So he finds the cubicle grid from macro data refinement, and he sits down
and just fucking plugs away.
Yeah, because he's Irving, and he's that's what he does.
Yeah.
And the little thing that goes down in front of his desk goes down, and it's Bert. And Bert's like, hey. And he's like,
hey, how you doing?
Everyone else right now is fucking on this. This is like, here's our chance.
Well, not Dylan.
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably jerking off into the woods.
Yeah.
So he looks over.
No, because he heard the story.
Oh, right.
You don't jerk off in these woods.
Yeah, he's like, I'll wait till I get home.
Lest you turn into a tree.
So he looks over diagonally to where Helly sits in relation to him. And the thing goes down, and it's Woe. It's the fucking weird half lady, and she doesn't say anything to him, and she's like doing weird, and like her head's moving in weird jerky ways and shit. And then like it jump scare, like all of a sudden she's like in front of him and shit.
We come back to the camera just focusing on Irving's face from the front, and then Woe comes in from out of the frame.
Yep, and Irving wakes up, and then it's morning, and but my first thought was, but surely he died, because like you can't just fall asleep in a tundra like that.
I mean, maybe his coat was really warm.
I don't think it's real. I don't think any of it's real.
Maybe.
I think it's like a holodeck or something, or some kind of hallucinogen, or I don't know. But he wakes up and he starts walking, and then we switch to Helly's POV, who is back at the waterfall, and Irv is just comes out of frame behind her. And he says, how does he's like, hey kid, and they start talking, and Irv says, what are you doing down here? Which is a double meaning, what are you doing down here at the waterfall? And what are you doing down here on the severed floor? Because motherfuckers, Irving has put this entire thing together, and he's like, Helly would never be that cruel.
Yep.
So you're not Helly, but there are only a handful of people in the world that would have the authority to come down here on set, like as their Audi or whatever.
Yeah.
So you have to be an Egan. And Helly's like, in her head she's like, that's sound logic. And he grabs her ass and
starts screaming, hey Milchick, you better get down here.
Dunks her ass into the water.
Well, also, Mark wakes up in Helly's tent.
Oh yeah, right.
And, like, gets dressed, and he's like,
"Oh, I wanted morning sex."
Yeah, where the fuck's Helly?
Yeah.
So he comes out there, and Dylan comes out. He's like, "Hey, where the fuck's Helly?" Irving never came back.
Yeah. I think it's funny that like you would expect. I would half expect, and not that I would think that there's any romance between Dylan and Irving.
No,
but,
they have a bromance.
But I bet they would still sleep in the same tent together.
Maybe.
So like Dylan's like, yeah, he didn't come back to our tent last night. And so they yell for Milchick.
Yeah,
and
Milchick runs in and is like, what the fuck's happening?
Yeah.
Where are Helly and Irving? And then they hear the commotion from the waterfall, and they go running over there.
Right. And Irving is straight up trying to drown Helly in the water.
He's like, hey, Milchick, I'm going to fucking drown her unless you give us back the real Helly.
Yeah. And Helly, who is starting to panic, like he's doing a good job drowning her.
Do it.
Yeah. She says, "Do it, Seth." And everyone's like, "Who the fuck's Seth?" And he gets on his radio and he says, "Remove the Glasgow block." Mm-hmm. And for the first time with Helly, so you might notice the entire season, every time they go down in their elevator, there's the ding sound and then the dolly zoom.
Yes.
And we don't ever we hear and see that for all the characters except for Helly when she goes in the elevator doors close and that's all you see. And we get a POV on her face under the water. We hear the ding, and then the fucking masterfully done. The visual storytelling is so good, and Helly is back, and Irving is holding her in his arms and apologizing.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and you can tell that Irving has in addition to his emotional connection to Bert, I think loves these people so much.
He is the heart of Macrohata.
Yeah, right. And he's like, I'm really sorry. I just, I'm sorry. I'm sure this is very strange to you. You probably just woke up underwater. Yeah. I'm so sorry. So, Milchick sentences Irving to death by unemployment.
Yes.
Pretty much. And
which is an incredibly dystopian thing to say.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. So
taken out of context, that sentence is what?
Yeah, right, yeah. So Dylan apologizes to Irving for not believing him, and he says, "It's okay. Just remember, hang in there." And you might think on its surface it's just a thing Irving would say, until you realize that when they did the stop motion presentation in the break room, there is a poster in the background that is Dylan's silhouette holding the switches down during the overtime contingency with the text that says "hang in there," which I think must be a message to him, don't forget why we did what we did and hang in there.
Yeah.
And so Milchick and Irving stare each other down, and I think that Irving's the only person that hasn't shied away from Milchick staring them down. He looks him right back in the face, and he's not scared. He walks off into the forest.
Well, Milchick says, "Walk in the fucking forest."
Yeah. He calmly closes his eyes, and they turn him off.
Yeah, I believe you hear a ding.
Yeah,
and then
the dolly
cuts to black.
The dolly zoom is the opposite direction, and he switches to his Audi, and that's how the episode ends.
Directed by Ben Stiller.
Yeah, dude, I never thought I'd say this, and I've said it, I feel like, so many times now. I cannot believe that Ben Stiller is involved in this, and it's because I underestimated him so thoroughly throughout my entire life because I hated Zoolander so much. I hated that movie so much.
Well, it's not just that. Most of his career, I feel like, has been stuff in that same vein.
Yeah.
But We Contain Multitudes.
Yeah.
And it turns out Ben Stiller had the capacity to direct, write, ?
So a lot of it, yeah.
And just generally showrun this incredibly nuanced,
it's so good,
mind-bending, incredibly well-written, directed, acted, visually constructed show.
Yeah. It just fucking 10 out of 10. It just what can I even say about it? And Ben Stiller's a genius. It just I don't understand.
We just have to admit that.
Yeah,
now.
I just don't get it that the guy from Zoolander wrote and produced this show and everything. It's so good. Ben says, "Hey yo, the setup looks better with a desk. Thank you. I love it. I have a lightsaber. I don't know if you saw it, but here it is.
I'm telling you, we need blazers."
Yeah, and then Pousey W16 says, "Hi friends.
Hello there.
Hi there. Hello there."
Okay.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes, 12 minutes to get through the rest of this.
So we can't go into any detail at all, really.
Right.
You want to do Spider-Man, or you want to do...
Let's do Invincible,
okay.
Because I feel like that's... So Spider-Man, pretty much, it's revolving around... Osborn's in on Team Spider-Man now,
yes.
and they're testing out suits and stuff.
They're testing out suits, and Peter's like, no, this is really working, until they give him the white suit.
Right, yes. And we get a Doc Ock reveal, who is making gear for villains in New York, in Queen. Or Brooklyn,
with a neat little 8 logo.
Right.
Lonnie
He's in a gang now.
Yeah, he's in a gang now because his little brother was stupid and got in a gang fight. He's like, you know what? You want a fucking mostly grown ass man? Here I am.
Yeah.
Let my brother go.
And he got his new nickname by the end of this season run, which is Tombstone, another Spider-Man villain.
Initially, he was extremely reluctant to do all that, but by the end, it's like he's
he saved the gang leader and got some adoration for it. It was like, damn.
I think it's a combination of that and Big Donovan making the case that like if we're not here, then fucking this other gang is going to move in and they're going to be way worse for your family. Yeah. So what are you going to do?
Yep. And so also Peter is kind of going through the normal Spider-Man stuff, which is I can't balance my Spider-Man life, my personal life, and
also Nico is trying to date him.
I think she's got little crushies. I think she caught feelings,
which is entirely in keeping with her comic perspective, like her comic continuity self, because that character is famously terrible at relatihinkships.
Oh, really? I don't know much about. Yeah, I don't know much about her.
That's fair, but like it's a combination of self-sabotage and overthinking, and sometimes extremely underthinking and impulsive behavior.
Yeah. I like how they're going to go to a movie and she thinks that maybe it's
she thinks it's a date because he got 2 tickets and then he shoes up with Harry Osborn.
Osborn, who I think as a gay man, I think I can say this, is obviously a gay teenager. Like I think probably might like Peter a little bit too.
Fair. Everybody loves Spider-Man.
Yeah. So he's drowning either in dick or pussy, depending on what mood he's in.
Or both.
Yeah. So far it's been fine. It's Invincible had a 3-episode opening that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and we talked about it a little bit last night during Battlefront because one of the guys we play Battlefront with is like up to date on all the comics and everything. And I think it's interesting from a fan's like an Invincible fan's perspective. He seems to be really pleased with the show as well. I think I'm not going to read it until after the show's finished. Because I don't want to.
From what I've heard, is going to be another 3 or 4 seasons, so he might be in for a wait.
Right,
but
which is fine. I'll wait for it, and it's kind of like the Game of Thrones thing, where I'm not getting invested in that book series until that motherfucker finishes all of it, because I'm not gonna. But this is like a little bit different, where like I don't want certain things spoiled, because I've kind of invested in the show a little bit, but So Mark is...
This isn't exactly a spoiler, but one of the things I really appreciate about Invincible, the show, is that like the violence is constructed and shown like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like anytime super beings start fighting either regular people or sometimes other super beings,
it gets pretty bloody.
Yeah, there's just buckets of blood all over the place. Yeah. Like limbs get torn off and you can see like bones and organs and things. Like it...
Yeah, like Mark steps on somebody's spleen.
Yeah.
Or no, his little brother does.
Yeah, his little brother fucking kills someone by going right through the middle of them.
Yeah, it's all pretty gross. And so basically, like, they're trying to figure out what to do with Nolan's other son,
Oliver,
who is growing up really fast and
has superpowers, despite the fact that he's like 2.
And is very much his father's son.
Yes.
Where he's like, we could do all this like protect everyone thing, or I could just kill the person who's the problem.
Yeah, I can just kill bad guys. That seems a little bit more direct.
A little bit of romance between Mark and
Eve.
Eve, who at the end of the last season, she's like he meets a different version of her from a different universe.
She's like, look, just fucking ask me out or shut me down.
Go back to your universe and fuck me, please.
And so Mark, being Mark, immediately goes to Eve and says, hey, you want to go out? She's like, yes. He's like, oh, that's such a relief.
Yeah.
The other version of you told me to, either shit or get off the pot, and I'm so happy. And she's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you're right. And like after she says yes, and he starts talking, and you're like, Mark,
no, stop.
You were doing fine.
And she's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Fortunately, they get interrupted by Cecil saying, hey, all the other heroes are kidnapped by fucking Dr. Seismic.
Yeah.
So, go
Earthquake
handle that.
Guy,
And Eve's like, I thought you'd never ask. I needed to kill something right now.
And then I think there's a plot brewing where Seth Rogen is going to break Nolan out of Viltrum jail. Yeah, so.
The very last sequence of episode 3, Mark spots this little drone spying on them, and he flies out and it blows up in his face.
It's guy that travels.
Yeah, the post credit sequence is we see that's Angstrom Levy.
Right. Yeah.
Another variant of him.
that character was voiced by Ezra Miller in the first season of.
Really?
Yes, and then apparently, he was Ezra Miller, so they fired them.
Yeah.
And now it's Sterling. What's his name?
Okay.
Sterling. Yeah.
Also, something I didn't put 2 and 2 together on. The Maulers are voiced by Kratos from the new God of War games. I think it's the same guy.
That actor died.
Really?
Yes, that actor died. Yeah.
Oh.
One of the actors died, and then I think they got another guy maybe. So that still might be correct, but I'm not sure. I didn't realize that Cecil, which by the way I like, the Cecil gets a little episode, a little thing on his own.
This little flashback thing where we see how Cecil got to be Cecil.
Yeah, he's like, you want to know how I got these scars? His voice actor is Walter Goggins, the guy that plays the ghoul from Fallout, who's also in Righteous Gemstones and a bunch of other. Yeah, he's a really good character actor.
But I like how they juxtaposed Mark's reaction to Cecil employing former bad guys to Cecil's reaction to his boss employing former bad guys. Mark is you need to throw those people in jail, and Cecil's I'm just going to shoot these guys in the head.
Yeah, it's way easier.
I also like that he becomes the boss of the superpowered prison block.
Oh, when he goes to jail, you mean? Yeah.
He's in jail for that for 3 years.
Yeah.
He gets thrown in, everyone's oh, superpower's going to kill him, and he's just the boss of the prison block.
Yeah, I think it's a cool character detail for him, because he would be able to work it out.
Yeah.
You know,
the biggest detail there is that his boss in the flashback tells him, we can be the good guys or we can be the guys who save the world. We can't do both.
Mm-hmm.
And in the present, that is Cecil quotes that word for word.
Yeah, because they're kind of employing some shady types to help out and everything. All right, that is the end of our podcast today. So if you're hanging out with us, thank you so much. Thank you for the comments. We will be back here in just a few minutes to play some Star Wars Battlefront 2, and we hope that you can join us. It'll be a lot of fun. Look for the podcast release of this on our YouTube channel in a couple of days under our podcast tab.
Mm-hmm.
So